Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. Next, we'll study the Shurangama Sutra. Everyone should be studying the Shurangama Sutra quite diligently. Going forward, we'll also have guidance sessions and discussions. This is also very important, I think, if we have opportunities to propagate the Dharma in the future. The Shurangama Sutra should be something we can spread widely. Everyone is very concerned about this as well. Speaking of the great masters of the past, there were indeed many, whether from the Chan school or the Tiantai school or the Pure Land school, many great masters studied the Shurangama Sutra. So I think in our future, will we have such conditions? There should be. It's just a bit different from ancient times. Now indeed times have changed in the past, whether in Han region Buddhism or among the great masters of Tibetan Buddhism teaching the sutras and expounding the Dharma was taken very seriously, and in various monasteries as well, in various practice centers. There was often the excellent tradition of teaching sutras and expounding Dharma. They had such wonderful customs. But now, although there have been some changes in certain aspects, but as long as conditions are sufficient in the future, I think many people here will also propagate the true Dharma, especially the Shurangama Sutra, this sutra that possesses considerable blessing power. When we study this sutra ourselves, we should try our best to have feelings and experiences. This is very important. When we study without any enthusiasm, without any curiosity, without any sincere heart, when you want to propagate it later, perhaps you won't have any impression of it at all. With this in mind, I'm thinking hopefully this year we can finish teaching the entire Shurangama Sutra. I have this thought, even if we can't finish it this year, as I've mentioned before within my lifetime, I still want to complete it. If there are no special issues with lifespan or other obstacles, this is how it will be. I hope everyone present will also listen with such a steadfast mind. In this way, we will have a good auspicious connection. Now previously, through King Prasenajit with his own impermanence and the analogy of the Ganges River, to recognize his own mind, his own true mind. So in the Chan tradition, they often speak of this wondrous mind, true mind, or enlightened mind. There are many such special technical terms. I think in our learning process, we also understand that in certain meanings it should be completely the same as the esoteric teachings, especially if we have studied the esoteric teachings when teaching the Shurangama Sutra or other texts, including the Vimalakirti Sutra, the Lotus Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, etc. When teaching these Mahayana Sutras, it seems very convenient, if you haven't studied these esoteric teachings, some content in the common sutras with exoteric Buddhism seems to have somewhat different meanings. At such times, whether you're teaching these sutras or understanding these sutras yourself, you encounter certain difficulties. So I've always believed, especially studying some tantras of our Nyingma school, including the Guyagarbha Tantra and Dzogchen. After studying these when teaching these Mahayana sutras, many principles are just different in textual expression. That's all, but actually the meaning should be the same. Why are the texts different? One reason might be that the translators at that time didn't have a unified approach. Actually, in Tibetan Buddhism for translating treatises and the Tripitaka king. Trisong Detsen at that time established what was equivalent to, if we use modern language, a state-level translation institute. After this, many terms were unified first, then translation was carried out. What they did then was very reasonable, whereas in other places many translators appeared rather scattered at that time. When they appeared scattered, the terms they used were not completely consistent. Just like many great masters now propagating Dharma in the West, each translator, they all use their own terms that are more suitable for their lineage. So now, up to the present, many technical terms in English have not yet been unified. So I see that some terms in Han region classics also have certain difficulties in unification. This is one aspect, and there's another aspect, because the time period is very distant. When the time is very distant, the terms from that time when we modern people use them, in some places there's also a certain gap between us, there's also a certain distance. So when we study now, it's not the terms that people commonly use nowadays, perhaps there aren't very many, but no matter what, we should enter into that world and begin to study. It's impossible now to express all ancient texts using modern internet language. This is all impossible. The language that people commonly use now, after 100 years, 200 years, or even 1,000 years later, the style of our current language usage might also have great changes. In this way, this time as we study the Shurangama Sutra, for me personally, as I mentioned before, sometimes I also find myself studying, still requires some effort in certain places, but sometimes I feel this sutra still has great blessing power and is very meaningful. So I'm also seriously exploring it. It's just that there's no time. If there were time, I would refer more to related commentaries and teachings by ancient masters, then combine them with my own understanding methods. It would be very meaningful. Let us continue now. Yesterday, Venerable Ananda and the Buddha, what was spoken at the end among the 10 direct pointings to the nature of mind. The fourth one, the nature of seeing is not lost. Before this one was, the nature of seeing is mind, another was, the nature of seeing does not move, and another, the nature of seeing does not retreat. Then the fourth, the nature of seeing is not lost. In the nature of seeing is not lost. The dialogue between the Buddha and Ananda at that time, finally the Buddha used his hand, whether it's upside down or not upside down. Based on this principle, we can also say that Ananda and the main assembly, everyone was in a state of there are two understandings. One understanding is when the Buddha spoke like this, everyone was dumbfounded, as if at a loss. Where exactly is this confusion of body and mind in such a state? Or Ananda at that time awakened to a very high state indeed. The so-called upside down and correct actually are just our kind of, in the end, upside down or not upside down. The meaning is not established. Like when we study Madhyamaka philosophy, it says in the conventional there are false conventional and true conventional, but this false conventional doesn't exist even conventionally. True conventional exists harmlessly before the sixth consciousness. But in the end, actually all these appearances are conceptually imputed. They're also not established ultimately. This is quite similar to that. According to the teachings of the third turning of the Dharma wheel, the Buddha's body and Ananda's body in appearance have pure and impure manifestations, but actually pure and impure also cannot be established. This principle was taught. At this time, everyone was also in quite a special state. Today, let's continue to teach what the subsequent process is like. As a Buddhist, toward the Dharma, toward the Buddha, for those who have faith in the entire three jewels, studying such sutras, as I mentioned before, it's as if we ourselves have arrived at that time, the scene from over 2,500 years ago. Sometimes King Prasenajit comes out to speak, sometimes Ananda comes out to speak, and later Manjushri Bodhisattva and many other bodhisattvas will also come out to dialogue. In this dialogue, we can also search for our own true mind. This is also very meaningful. Actually, in the learning process, everyone should seriously observe their own mind. This is very important. No matter what Dharma you study, some people with good conditions might encounter some special words or phrases when encountering a special passage. Perhaps you'll have a particularly good realization. If you don't have the conditions or your karma is very heavy, then even if the most supreme Dzogchen teachings are taught, the most profound heart essence practices, perhaps you won't feel anything either. Actually, people's capacity for awakening varies greatly. Probably the so-called habitual tendencies also have thickness and thinness, very different. Some might have stayed at Larungar for 10 years, 8 years, 20 years seemingly, without much awakening capacity. Some at least still have some steadfast faith, steadfast renunciation, these they will have. So sometimes this Dharma indeed, everyone's situation is different. The situations are very different. Even with one sutra, some people have very deep realizations. Some people are just so-so as long as they stay here without falling asleep. Amitabha, then they feel that in this class, I still listen seriously without falling asleep. They give themselves a thumbs up. Some, even during the teaching process or during the learning process, generate conceptual thoughts, generate all kinds of, for example, when we taught the words of my perfect teacher before, mixed afflictions are equivalent to poisonous food. There can be such things too. No matter what, in our process of listening to Dharma, everyone must organize their emotions. One's mind, stream, must be purified. This is very important. Generally speaking, as a Dharma teacher, we are also very serious about, even if we have some afflictions or sufferings emotionally during Dharma teaching, if there's no special necessity, we try not to use them in the classroom. We listeners are the same, like what was taught earlier in the words of my perfect teacher, either with vast mind, generating bodhicitta for the benefit of all boundless sentient beings, or maintaining it with the secret, pure, skillful means mind. At such times, as I mentioned a couple days ago, our assembly, including the Dharma teacher, including our Dharma, including time, including all phenomena, all are the pure, inexhaustible ornament wheel, especially pure, inconceivable, if we adjust our mindset to such a realm. Oh, then I am now together with many bodhisattvas, listening before the Tathagata. Actually, all phenomena arise depending on motivation. One completely obtains such merit. This is very important. Now let's continue here. The Buddha, arising in compassion, took pity on Ananda and all the great assembly. He issued forth the ocean tide sound, universally addressing the assembly. Here it says that at that time the Buddha greatly aroused compassion, taking pity on Ananda and the great assembly present. I don't know if there were many people in the great assembly then. Then the Buddha issued forth the ocean tide sound, universally addressing all those at the Shurangama assembly. The Shurangama assembly, generally in many Shurangama Sutra books, now in the front of some sutras, there are specially drawn illustrations of the Shurangama assembly drawn very beautifully. There are such things. There's one called Illustrated Shurangama Sutra. In this, there are many teachings about when the Buddha was teaching on the spot, various different cases displayed through paintings, which is also very good. In some monasteries, on the walls, in some special Dharma halls, there are also very magnificent paintings of such gatherings at the Shurangama assembly. Here it says he issued forth the ocean tide sound. Actually, the Buddha's voice is equivalent to the waves of the great ocean. The waves of the great ocean never cease. The Buddha's voice in its work of gathering and benefiting sentient beings also never ceases. There's such an explanation. Also, the great ocean and ocean tide have the meaning of complete pervasion because the great ocean pervades everything. Similarly, the Buddha's compassionate voice actually can pervade all disciples. It's just that some disciples have faith they might receive more benefit, and some disciples don't have such great faith. The Buddha's ocean tide sound, the results that each sentient being receives are simply different. At that time, what did the Buddha say with his compassionate ocean tide sound? All you good men, I have constantly said that form, mind, all conditions and mental factors, all conditioned phenomena are merely manifestations of mind. Here, the Buddha tells all good men and good women. Here, he didn't mention women, but here it's probably because Ananda is the main character here, so probably with Ananda as the main focus. All you good men, I have often said this before. What have I often said? The Buddha should have taught this in other Mahayana sutras. What he has often said is, form, mind, all conditions, mental factors, and all conditioned phenomena, all of these are manifestations from mind. These several phenomena have different methods of explanation. But I see that Changshui Zixuan, his method of explanation might be more suitable, although the Tibetan Tripitaka, translated by imperial preceptor Chankya, has slight differences. But actually here his form refers to the 11 types of form. When we generally teach the Abhidharmakosa, it's found in Gateway to Knowledge. Then regarding mind, the 8 minds, what we discussed earlier, are the 8 consciousness groups: alaya consciousness, defiled mind, plus mental consciousness, and the 5 sense consciousnesses. All conditions here refers to the 24 formations dissociated from mind. Mental factors refer to the 51 mental factors. all conditioned phenomena refers to the 6 unconditioned phenomena: space, analytical cessation, non-analytical cessation, etc. 6 unconditioned phenomena. In this way, this is called the 5 categories and 100 phenomena. There are 5 different categories altogether, adding up to 100 phenomena. The Mahayana Shatadharma Prakashamukha Shastra contains many hundred phenomena, generally in the common vehicle. There are often 100 types of phenomena. This is actually very important. These 100 phenomena, mind and mental factors on the conventional level mind, and also formations dissociated from mind, form phenomena, all sentient and non-sentient things. Formations dissociated from mind, all conventional phenomena, can be included within these. What's not included here doesn't exist. Actually, everyone should study Gateway to Knowledge. This is very important. In it, each phenomenon is explained very clearly. Although the Abhidharmakosa doesn't gather them together to teach like this, it actually explains them quite clearly too. So here it says, whether mind or mental factors form phenomena or formations dissociated from mind, even unconditioned phenomena, all phenomena are all manifestations from mind alone. This principle of all phenomena are created by mind alone is the same. Generally speaking, in our Buddhism, whether common vehicle or uncommon vehicle, all phenomena manifesting from mind, this principle won't have any major debate. Basically, all Buddhist viewpoints are like this. So I feel that Zixuan's method of explanation should be very good. Regarding Zixuan, actually I mentioned this briefly the day before yesterday. He formed a connection with the Shurangama Sutra. When he was 9 years old, he began practicing this teaching for his whole life. Later, movement and stillness, these 2 characteristics clearly do not arise in the 6th volume below when he read the Shurangama Sutra. To that point, he had already awakened. There's such a history. When we get to that part, we can discuss it. I think Zixuan is still quite remarkable. He later also became the 6th patriarch of the Huayan school, became a patriarch of the Huayan school. He appeared in this world approximately from over 900 CE to around 1000 CE. Basically, it's quite similar to when Venerable Atisha appeared, roughly the same time period. It should be close to 1,000 years from now, a great master from that time. His explanation of this passage I also think is very good. We should be able to say this way: all phenomena manifest from within mind. Your body and your mind are all objects manifesting within the wondrous, bright, true, pure, wonderful mind. This sentence is also very important. Didn't the Buddha say this to Venerable Ananda and others at that time? Your bodies, your minds, what are they all? They are all produced within the wondrous, bright, true, pure, wonderful mind. Actually, what this means is your body, your mind, absolutely everything. All phenomena are wondrous, means subtle. Bright means luminous. True means without any falseness. That's called true. Pure means without any mixture of impure phenomena manifesting within such a wonderful mind. Actually, in front of this wonderful mind, all are its qualifiers, meaning in our Tibetan translation it says, produced within an extremely rare, luminous mind. This can also be included. The meaning is all our body and mind, everything actually within this luminous, unconditioned nature, within the true, wonderful mind, within awareness, or we could say within the ground, the primordial ground, such a product. If we say it this way, then it's quite similar to what's taught in the first chapter of our wish-fulfilling treasury, meaning all present appearances should be a kind of manifestation of mind, but though it can be said to be mind's manifestation, it's not an object appearing to mind. According to the view of Venerable Longchenpa, we can also say it this way: if everything is produced within the luminous mind, then why do you all lose the original wonder, the perfectly wonderful bright mind, the precious bright wonderful nature, and recognize delusion within awakening? This is the same as what I just explained. Perhaps combining it with esoteric viewpoints would be a bit better, because all our current body and mind, all impure things, are all produced within the beautiful, rare, true mind. Then why is it said that your original wonder means the original true mind, original awareness accomplished without cultivation, this primordial mind? Why is it lost?
Why lost? One is the original wonder and also the perfectly wonderful bright mind, the precious, bright, wonderful nature. Actually, in Tibetan, this seems to be luminous, pure, true mind. Why is it lost? It doesn't have so many characteristics, but actually we can say this. Bright mind is originally very rare. Beautiful, perfect, or eternally tranquil, luminous, and originally it's like a jewel, pure, such a mind. Why is it lost this way? And recognizing delusion within awakening. Originally it's a kind of awakening. How could there already be confusion within awakening? When we talk about the primordial ground too. The primordial ground is luminous, the ultimate alaya consciousness. It's the Tathagatagarbha, but within such purity, ignorance appears, then using ignorance as a condition. Three types of habitual tendencies appear in the three realms. Then karma is created, wandering in samsara. Perhaps this explanation is better to understand otherwise from the common vehicle viewpoint. How could the original nature at the very beginning suddenly be lost like this? Why is this? When teaching the Shurangama Sutra too, there will definitely be such doubts. If it's truly a original wonderful mind, original true mind, then why did it suddenly become lost? There are such questions. So the esoteric explanation and the Shurangama Sutra's explanation of ground appearances manifesting from the primordial ground here can basically all be verified. He says within this original awakening confusion being lost, how is it lost? Explained below. Dimness becomes space, in the dark void, darkness congeals into form. Here, dimness is ignorance, everyone knows this, because within such original purity we speak of innate ignorance and imputed ignorance. Imputed ignorance and innate ignorance as a kind of state without any obstruction. This is called space. The space here doesn't mean great emptiness, this ignorance corresponding activity. Originally the pure Dharmakaya without any confusion and delusion, then suddenly, coincidentally, this ignorance is dark, dim. It combines with this space, then space and dimness. Dimness is also a kind of darkness, also a kind of ignorance, stupidity. Within this darkness congeals into form. Finally, ignorance, and this kind of emptiness, ignorance and worldly emptiness, or such ignorance combining as a condition finally becomes what? The external form of the four elements, etc. What we discussed earlier, isn't there something called habitual tendencies of objects? External mountains, rivers, and earth are the appearing of their own characteristics. This is equivalent to this. Then after having such form mixed with false thinking. Then after having such habitual tendencies of objects, this form becomes mixed with false thinking. False thinking is equivalent to what we discussed earlier as habitual tendencies of meaning, that is to say, mind and mental factors are alaya consciousness, etc. Gradually false thinking appears with external form, then discriminating false thoughts become this kind of false thinking. Then thinking form becomes the body, having external form, having one's own mind consciousness, discriminating thoughts. Having these two conditions, what does it depend on? It depends on this body. The body is habitual tendencies of the body. Then thinking form becomes the body. In this way, then, this body, thinking form here, its body, thinking form, body, thinking form, we can say it this way. In some viewpoints of the consciousness-only school, that is to say, object and meaning, and also the body, object, meaning body. The meaning is the same, still discussing one's own alaya consciousness, etc. Object, sometimes this body is called object in some viewpoints of the consciousness-only school. It's like this. Here I think, what are our three types of habitual tendencies? One is form, the second is false thinking, the third, the body. So when these three types of conditions are complete, gathering conditions causes internal agitation, rushing outward in pursuit. The confused, agitated characteristics are taken to be the nature of mind, having the earlier external objects, having this body, and also having our false thinking. When these three types of habitual tendency conditions are complete, this is called internal agitation, internal discriminating thoughts. What was discussed earlier is grasping discriminating thoughts. Having grasping discriminating thoughts, then it begins to go outward. This is white, this is red, then rushing outward in pursuit. Externally, depending on form, sound, smell, taste, and other six sense objects, external grasped discriminating thoughts appear. Having grasping and grasped discriminating thoughts, confused, agitated characteristics distant from their true mind, then in samsara continuously confused, deluded appearances, whether self and ego grasping or mountains, rivers, and earth. All kinds of these samsaric six-realm deluded appearances and characteristics, disturbing characteristics like this, will appear. So, taking this to be the nature of mind. Beings of the six realms take this to be the true nature of mind. Originally we have no self, then we grasp at having a self. Originally it's impure, but we grasp it as pure. Permanence, bliss, self, and purity, everyone should know. Originally it's momentarily impermanent, then we think it's permanent. Didn't we say yesterday when King Prasenajit looked at the Ganges River, he felt that the earlier Ganges, the Ganges at age 13, the Ganges at age 62, all seemed the same. Actually, he also had confused, agitated characteristics because as a worldly person, he never understood the continuity of the Ganges. When he didn't understand, when others asked him, he felt he had a deluded continuity. With deluded continuity, he would think, the river I crossed before was also this one. The river I'm crossing now is also this one. This unexamined, worldly, deluded appearance. King Prasenajit was also like this. After all, he probably hadn't studied much in appearances. Before the Buddha, he felt, of course, in the end it was said that the nature of mind doesn't move. He had already recognized this principle. But actually, there is indeed such deluded appearances. We have yesterday, when I watched the teaching examinations, two Dharma teachers both explained it slightly. This analogy was a little bit. Maybe I didn't explain it clearly at that time. For example, when an eyelash is placed in the eye, it's especially sensitive, immediately noticeable, especially that feeling. Then this eyelash on the palm has no feeling at all. The same principle, a person who cultivates impermanence very well, whether spring, summer, autumn, winter, our entire process from youth to middle age for them, it's especially obvious, everything is impermanent. You see, now spring has come after a while, summer, then from summer to winter. My lifespan is also turning very rapidly, seeing photos of themselves from 2 years ago, today's photos. I am so impermanent. Immediately they have such a strong feeling, just like placing an eyelash in the eye. Then ordinary worldly people, those who haven't practiced well, feel nothing. We often know that worldly people, no matter how you explain spring and summer impermanence. Yes, spring and summer are impermanent. They have no such concept at all. So I think perhaps we truly understanding these Buddhist principles, although we ourselves are in delusion, in self and ego grasping. But if we suddenly come to our senses, indeed, I have been lost from my original nature until today. Today I think of self and possessions of self-thinking. These things are pure and happy. Their essence is not like this immediately we realize. This is related to our practice and capacity. There are indeed differences. Some people perhaps have past life conditions. If you teach them just a little from the words of my perfect teacher, most of the content within it begins to integrate. Their feelings become very deep. Some have already listened so many times. We have a saying in the Tibetan region, if someone has listened to too much Dharma, their head becomes flat. The head becomes flat having listened too much. Finally, the head becomes flat, but still hasn't realized it's said like this. So what I mean is, whether contemplating impermanence or contemplating these deluded appearances, you should have listened quite a lot, studied quite a lot, seen quite a lot. The mind will transform, even if the mind doesn't have particularly great transformation. But in this lifetime, we have formed such good connections with such wonderful Dharma. Forming such good conditions is very rare. I often think it's just that when we combine what's in the text with our own mind, there's a little difficulty. Otherwise, these texts are 100% each one better than the last, honestly. For example, the words of my perfect teacher, incredibly wonderful, but many things within it when I study. I might have some distance. The Shurangama Sutra is taught. Especially wonderful, the wish-fulfilling treasury. Truly a wish-fulfilling jewel. But sometimes it seems the things in our text truly becoming our own requires a kind of diligence and also prayer. All these conditions complete. Actually, truly speaking, if one Dharma teaching could be sufficient, if a very good practitioner without many theories practices one Dharma teaching very well, will also become a true practitioner. So we practitioners must integrate Dharma into our mind stream. Otherwise, listening to classes very seriously. Afterwards, a few years ago, a monk here and a Tibetan Lama over there argued over housing matters. Then our person here also started speaking quite harshly to him. Finally, that Lama said, "It seems he hasn't understood any of the Dharma he's listened to." And at that time, because his expression wasn't very good, but I believe this because when people aren't in good states, anyone might have such habitual tendencies. Perhaps that Lama, when he listens to classes himself, would he be like this? But I don't know. I heard that if we don't practice very well, perhaps the Dharma we listen to cannot integrate into our mind stream. What was just discussed was taking this to be the nature of mind. When we finally wander in samsara, taking this to be the nature of mind. Actually, it's not the nature of mind. Everyone knows this. Once lost as mind, definitely confused as being within the physical body. Once we continuously confuse this mind, this definite confusion, afflictions actually thinking it's within our own body, within the physical body, if we continue to be confused like this, finally taking the five aggregates to be the self. Each of us indeed has this, because for such a long time we've been continuously lost. Because of karma, because of afflictions, because of ego grasping, because of the twofold grasping, finally it seems natural to think of our own body as mine. Actually, the body is not the self. Every time we study the precious garland of the middle way or the way of the Bodhisattva, we all know the five elements are not self, the five aggregates are not self, but we have such solid habitual tendencies, taking it to be the self, not knowing that the physical body, extending to mountains, rivers, space, and earth, are all objects within the wondrous, bright, true mind. Many of us don't know that the body and form phenomena and even the external mountains, rivers, earth and space are all produced within the wondrous nature and true mind. This is also a very famous phrase in the Shurangama Sutra. Many of us indeed have beginningless habitual tendencies. We can say they are beginningless habitual tendencies, both esoterically and exoterically. We can say this. It's just that in the esoteric teachings, beginningless habitual tendencies are not completely beginningless. They begin when ground appearances emerge from the primordial ground. From that time they start. But no matter what, we don't know that the body and form phenomena, the external mountains, rivers and earth, including our Larunga or our present earth or space, actually all these are extremely rare and wonderful, produced within the true mind. This passage is also very important. In history there were also such cases. Master Hanshan, whom I mentioned before, he was truly remarkable. Some of Hanshan's Chan books, truly, his awakening is hard to imagine. It said when he was 30 years old at that time, no one confirmed his realization. When he first read the Shurangama Sutra, he couldn't understand it at all. But later he read it for 8 months, after a very long time. I don't particularly understand what's in there. After a very long time, he began reading the Shurangama Sutra. After reading the Shurangama Sutra around age 41, he suddenly had a kind of mental experience. At that time, when he read this part of the Shurangama Sutra, these words before him were a little, your body, your mind, not knowing the physical body. These two, in the biography, it says in his chronological record, your body, your mind, extending to mountains, rivers, space, and earth, are all objects within the wondrous, bright, true mind. When he read this passage, he completely awakened. Later he wrote a book called The Shurangama Suspended Mirror, but I don't know if it exists. If it does, we could look at it sometime, Hanshan's work, because now there are some commentaries. It's called The Shurangama Suspended Mirror. Seems to be only one volume. So regarding this passage, I think Master Hanshan awakened. When reading this passage, I see so many people here today. There should also be disciples of Hanshan. When reading this part, you should also think about it. I read it several times this afternoon and haven't awakened yet, but it should be soon. Go back tonight and read it again. Look at space. What he means here is one's own body and mind, and the external mountains, rivers, and earth are all within the wondrous, bright, true mind. Actually, the esoteric teachings also say this. All phenomena of samsaric and nirvanic appearances all appear within awareness, within primordial awareness, appearing within the original alaya consciousness. These terms in our esoteric texts are also very numerous. I see some key terms when everyone reads them. Indeed, these many great masters in Han region Buddhism, relying on such Chan teachings, this is, most of their great masters regarded it as a book for Chan awakening, so let's also see relying on such methods ourselves, contemplating well, praying, and repeatedly just like His Holiness. Jigme Phuntsok in the past often read direct pointing to the nature of mind and then awaken like that if you have confidence, contemplating these words repeatedly. Didn't His Holiness also say at that time, it's just that we don't know if we read, we will definitely realize he had such confident determination beforehand. Having such confident determination when reading repeatedly at first it's not so clear, then gradually, oh indeed, it's like this, whether the entire mountains, rivers and earth. If we now combine this meaning, including my mind, my body, mountains, rivers, earth, absolutely everything actually are appearances within our original luminous mind, meaning all these present things are just like mountains, rivers, and earth in dreams actually are just deluded appearances of that consciousness. Logic also explains it this way. When you wake up from a dream, originally all these mountains, rivers, and earth immediately are completely gone. It's exactly the same. If we today rely on such appearances, finally truly recognize our own mind, originally beings in the three realms of samsara, every day are lamenting like this, actually, as long as we recognize. Why do many great masters in the Chan tradition often say, "Where is mind?" or "Who are you?" Having such a meditation topic to awaken immediately. In the esoteric teachings too, the master has special words, or has you look at space or observe your own mind, or "Who are you?" Many great masters' biographies are like this, so we should also contemplate, well, see how it goes. Here it says, like someone who abandons a clear ocean of hundreds of thousands of miles, only recognizing a single floating bubble, taking it to be the complete tide, exhausting all seas. This is an analogy. For example, a person abandons an ocean of hundreds of thousands of yojanas, casting it aside, abandoning it, then only thinking there is one. Here, floating bubble. Floating bubble is actually a kind of transparent water bubble, a water bubble body on the ocean tide in the Great Sea. So this water bubble body, thinking it has waves, has the complete ocean tide, exhausting all seas. Exhausting all seas, you take it to be the Great Ying and Small Bow Seas, probably in China at that time, Bohai Sea, South China Sea. There are many seas also with the name Bo, meaning seas. We abandon the great ocean, cast it aside, then have a drop of water or a water bubble, taking one water bubble to be the great ocean. Isn't this a ridiculous thing? Actually, we are the same, abandoning our true mind like a great ocean pervading everything, the principle of unconditioned phenomena, abandoning such true mind, then a very small 5 aggregates related to our own body like a transparent bubble, taking it to be the great ocean, if we take the 5 aggregates to be I. This is a very foolish behavior. This analogy is still quite interesting. If a person abandons the great ocean and sees one drop of water as the great ocean, actually it's a ridiculous thing. We are the same, abandoning the true mind like a great ocean. This is originally the true I. We can say it's the true I if there is an I. But if you take the 5 aggregates, this body, this mind consciousness, and take them to be I, then this is taking a water drop to be I. There's no difference. You all are those who are doubly deluded within delusion. You people are those even more deluded within delusion. The Buddha also here somewhat scolds Venerable Ananda. You see, yesterday Ananda was being clever. I don't know. Worldly people know. Worldly people say such and such like this. But actually today the Buddha is also quite clear about Ananda's thoughts. You all are those who are doubly deluded within delusion. Like my lowered hand, there is no difference. The Tathagata says they are to be pitied. He says, you people are really stupid beyond words, extremely, extremely deluded ones. Very confused people, just like yesterday when I held my hand downward. You were very confused about this reversal, also very puzzled and uncomprehending. At that time all were puzzled and uncomprehending. There's no difference difference from this. So the Tathagata here seeing you are very pitiable. Therefore here can only speak to you in this way what was just explained about how the great ocean and true mind produce everything. Actually, regarding the Shurangama Sutra, many of us might feel from the perspective of those who study Tibetan Buddhism, many things can correspond with each other. This point, I think some of us have been studying Tibetan Buddhism all along. But in the future, when we propagate the Dharma, this will all be needed. So this should, perhaps I'm not particularly expert at this, but I might have one advantage. I have some understanding of Tibetan esotericism. So combining these two, this might be relatively rare in Han region explanations. Apart from this, if you ask me to explain word by word, perhaps one reason is wisdom, another is time and various other aspects. It might not satisfy everyone, but overall, perhaps combining these we should have a relatively new understanding. Among these 10 direct pointings above the direct pointing of not lost, we just discussed has been completed. The 4th one next. The 5th should be the nature of seeing does not return. Actually, the not retreating, not moving, not lost here all have very important principles. For example, what we discussed earlier was not lost. Not lost means the true mind has never been lost. It's just a change of position. Both his analogies and meanings have profound explanations. The not moving, actually, our true mind has never wavered. Not migrating means it has never actually migrated. It relates to these present analogies in a very profound way that can be combined. But due to time constraints, we don't need too much explanation. Next, Ananda, receiving the Buddha's compassionate rescue and profound teaching, wept and joined his palms, addressing the Buddha. Then at this time, Venerable Ananda received the Buddha's blessings, compassionate protection, profound teachings, because earlier there was also scolding. You are especially stupid. The Buddha also said this somewhat, and after this Ananda felt he was indeed a bit stupid. Then he wept and joined his palms. He wept continuously, then joined his palms. Then he was especially sad, crying while joining palms or clasping hands. Addressing the Buddha, although I have received the Tathagata's wondrous sound and awakened to the wondrous bright mind, originally perfectly complete, eternally abiding mind ground, Venerable Ananda said, I have received the Tathagata's blessings and your subtle voice. I have basically also realized my own originally luminous mind, originally perfectly complete, inherently possessed, inherently perfect, eternally abiding mind. And when I awaken to the Buddha's present teaching sounds, I am now using a conditioned mind, allowing me to look up in admiration. Then he said, although I heard, I myself felt perhaps, what the Buddha said before about what the so-called true mind is like, what the luminous mind is like, how the eternally abiding mind is, I also basically understand. But having said this, I now realize that the Buddha's present teaching sounds are actually now using a conditioned mind. Most of the time before I listened to the Buddha's Dharma with a grasping mind. We seem to be like this every time we listen to Dharma, listening to the Dharma teacher's voice. We feel we understand quite well, but actually our true mind we haven't recognized yet. It's just a kind of grasping mind. So using this method to look up, in admiration, envy, yearning. Some of us really enjoy listening to classes every day, this conditioned mind, having a kind of grasping mind. Wow. Please have this Dharma teacher give a class. The teaching is especially good. I'm so happy. But saying this, actually, we haven't found the true mind. We haven't sought it ourselves, haven't recognized it. This is perhaps most of us truly the same as Ananda, roughly knowing from words and phrases that our mind is like this, but truly recognizing the original face of mind, what it's really like. We've never had such an experience, no very deep experience. So he has a kind of envy, a kind of yearning, a kind of grasping mind, continuously listening to the Buddha's Dharma. Then he said, I've gained this mind in vain. I dare not recognize it as the original mind ground. So I myself have obtained such an upright mind, but I don't feel it's truly this mind. Many of us might also have this, although we've listened to many classes and feel we've studied seriously, but the true original face of this mind, up until now, we don't consider it to be truly awareness, truly this original mind. We haven't didn't I mention the other day, especially in our practice classes or when we meditate by ourselves every day, we must not let the mind be driven and controlled by various kinds of dullness and distraction. We must recognize this mind's true original face, what it's really like, having a rather forceful way. We must recognize it sometimes. The power of this mind is very strong. If you're not distracted and don't generate various conceptual thoughts and truly want to recognize it, there will be this opportunity. Sometimes this mind can be anything. On one hand, it's very disobedient, but on the other hand, as long as conditions and dependent origination are complete, it can all be utilized. So our practice is truly very important. I often think this way. All of you present theoretically. Basically, everyone can explain in today's society the level of individual Dharma teachers here is completely without any problems. Teaching this sutra, this treatise, there's no difference. But most critically, we ourselves haven't found our mind. If we have even a little the warmth signs I mentioned the day before yesterday, or recognition, we don't say directly seeing like a first ground bodhisattva, but at least having some experience of our own mind, having experience of cause and effect, having a kind of genuine experiential understanding of bodhicitta. If you don't have this, perhaps teaching sutras and expounding Dharma to others in the future, talking eloquently might not necessarily bring any transformation or benefit. To others' minds, it would just be transmitting these Buddhist principles, just like some people in the current academic world, just teaching them. If we ourselves truly, during your time at Larangar, even if it's 2 months, 2 years, wow, recognizing this mind has transformation. If your mind has transformation, then future Dharma propagation, benefiting beings, solitary practice will all be completely different. So all of you present, don't spend time on theory or spend time on research. If doing research, of course, it's a virtuous deed, also a good thing, but will the results obtained from research ever have an end? It's difficult. If we recognize our own mind, then every time practicing any Dharma, we might have our own experience. I was thinking the other day, if we teach entering the way of the great vehicle this year at the same time, could we have the Khenpo and Khenmas read a guide to the words of my perfect teacher? Khenpo and Khenmas read it with many specific practices within it. Be something we truly practice. Actually, a guide to the words of my perfect teacher is very important Dharma. But at that time when I was translating, my health wasn't good. I didn't emphasize it sufficiently. At that time, I gave the lineage transmission to the Khenpos and Khenmas. Then the Khenpos and Khenmas also transmitted it. But I thought to myself last year this, a guide to the words of my perfect teacher. From which master did I receive it? I did receive it, but I've forgotten that person's name. So now I'm very ashamed. No matter how I think about it, it seems Khenpo Tsultrim Lodro and I received it from some master, or where else. No matter how I think about it, recently I've been thinking continuously, could I recall past lives? Let me see who that was anyway. At that time I gave the lineage transmission to the Khenpos and Khenmas. This is also a choice for everyone. A guide to the words of my perfect teacher is one, it's Khenpo Achong's individual transmission, their lineages practice, including Patrul Rinpoche. It's very important for practice. We can say it's a Chan sect within Tibetan Buddhism. This is a kind of Dzogchen, very important for directly pointing to the nature of mind, especially within this. The foundational preliminary practices discussed earlier are very important. So this is also, let's see how we do. Then at that time, Venerable Ananda felt his previous study all fell into words, and he was a bit sad. So I pray the Buddha will take pity, manifest the perfect sound, uproot my doubts, and return me to the supreme path. Buddha's compassion, mercy, he constantly requests. Actually, Ananda is quite pitiable every day. He makes mistakes before the Buddha, but his attitude is still quite good. Each time he's so respectful before the Buddha. Then he said, could you manifest the perfect sound that directly points to the nature of mind, allowing me to truly recognize it, not just your words and phrases, this pointing in meaning? Could you explain clearly to me? Uproot my doubts. After all, he's of the Shravaka vehicle, he has doubts. Could you also allow me to return to actual practice, or truly the supreme path? Let me explain this analogy briefly. This analogy is relatively simple. At this time, the Buddha told Ananda, you still use a conditioned mind to listen to Dharma. You listen to Dharma with this kind of grasping mind. This Dharma also becomes conditioned in this way. This Dharma also becomes a grasping mind, not obtaining the Dharma nature. If we just cling to words and phrases, that's not the the true Dharma nature, not the true nature of mind below. He gives him an analogy. For example, a person points at the moon with his finger, then shows it to others. Oh, on my finger, along that direction, there's a bright moon. So at this time, that person, because of the finger, should look at the moon. If this person isn't very stupid following that finger, he should look at the moon. If he instead observes the finger, taking it for the moon's body, this person not only loses the moon disk, but also loses the finger. If this person is a bit stupid, he thinks this finger is the moon's body. The treasury of valid reasoning also has this analogy thinking, oh, the moon is there. He feels he doesn't look at the sky, only looks at that finger. If this is the moon's body, then certainly this person has already lost the moon disk. He definitely can't see the moon disk. He only looks at the finger. If he only looks at the finger, actually this finger is also lost. Why? Because the moon disk is perfect. It can radiate cool nectar light, but the finger doesn't have this characteristic, so he can't see the moon disk and can't see the moon disk that the finger actually indicates, so the finger is also already lost. Why is this said? Because what the finger indicates is the bright moon, because actually the finger indicates the bright moon and is not the finger itself. Not only does he lose the finger, he also no longer recognizes brightness from darkness. Not only does he lose the function of the finger, he also doesn't recognize the difference between bright and dark. Originally his finger is dark, the moon disk is bright. If this is the case, he no longer has the difference between bright and dark. Why? Because he takes the finger's body as the moon's brightness. Because what does he indicate? He treats this finger as the bright moon, having no understanding of the two natures of brightness and darkness. This person finally has no understanding of bright and dark. Actually, his meaning is bright refers to the true mind. Dark refers to a kind of sound dust through sound, a kind of dust of sound mistaking it like this. For example, when Ananda listened to Dharma, when the Buddha began teaching, he should have pointed like a bright moon, but he didn't look at the bright moon, only looked at his finger. For example, a Dharma teacher teaches the Shurangama Sutra. When teaching the Shurangama Sutra, you say, wow, this Dharma teacher's voice sounds especially good. Wow, I find it especially comfortable to listen to this Dharma teacher, is very compassionate. Wow, I especially like seeing him. Then actually this is the same as this analogy, your purpose of listening to Dharma. The Dharma teacher looks good. His voice is resonant. His entire atmosphere is very good. When he teaches Dharma, our entire class doesn't need floor heating. The whole place is very, very warm. So are you here to keep warm or to listen to Dharma? So truly, the Dharma he points to, you truly integrate into your own mind. But if you lose this, then when a person looks at the moon, doesn't see the moon, only looks at your finger, there's no difference. You are also like this. If you use discriminating mind to take my teaching, sounds as your mind. If you use discriminating mind, toward the Dharma I speak, thinking this is your mind. This mind should naturally be separate from discriminating sounds. This kind of mind of yours should be separate from the discriminated sound. Having discriminating nature should also be separate from the discriminating mind. Here, discriminated, the sound you hear, you also shouldn't be separate from the discriminating mind, also shouldn't exist. But what should there be? There should be the true mind that the Buddha truly points to. This is very much needed. Let me speak to here the analogy below. We'll discuss tomorrow.
Bandharangara Padmasada Bandharangara Padmasada